Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone to the November 11th council meeting of the City of Mayfield Heights. And I would like to wish everyone that is a veteran, thank you for their service. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Balestria.
Present.
Mr. Mano.
Here.
Mr. Medic.
Here.
Mr. Minor.
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Here.
Mrs. Snyder.
Here.
Miss Tolbin.
Here.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is the approval of the minutes from our October 28th council meeting. I hope everyone's had time to read these minutes over. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta and second by Mr. Balestria. Are there any changes, amendments, or deletions to these minutes? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? These minutes have been approved as written. At this time, does any council member have any correspondence or announcements? We will now move to reports of the officers, starting with the mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to echo the statement by the council president. To all our veterans on this Veterans Day, we take a moment to express our profound gratitude for your service and dedication, and we salute you, our heroes. Thank you for your service, and may God bless you. This is another reminder that the city is participating in a multi-city firefighter exam, one test for 10 cities. This is a great opportunity for anyone interested in pursuing a career as a firefighter. That exam is Tuesday, December 3rd. NOPEC has announced they will hold their electric standard program price steady at 6.499 kilowatt hours for January through May 25th, May of 2025, I should say, meter read dates. That price has been and is expected to continue to be significantly below the utility's standard service offer. So if anyone would like to get more information on that, you can see nopec.com for more information. They also have programs where you can lock in a price for longer than that 5-month period. And another reminder, the annual lighting of City Hall will be on Sunday, December 1st from 6 to 8 p.m. It's always a great event. You could take pictures with Santa and Mrs. Claus, and we will be in the fire bays for the festivities. So I hope to see all of you there. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any questions for the mayor? Okay. Law Director, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Director of Finance, Mrs. Scully.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two things on the agenda tonight. I sent an email last week regarding them. The first is ordinance 2024-25. This is the original appropriation request for 2025 starting January 1st. We will have a Finance Committee meeting on Wednesday, November 13th at 5:30 to review in detail that budget. If possible, please give me your questions ahead of time so we can review the answers on Wednesday. The second ordinance, 2024-26, is an amendment to the 2024 budget. This is primarily for the wage adjustments that were needed due to the approved collective bargaining agreements and the non-union wage ordinance approved by council during the year. We were also awarded a NOPEC grant, and we're adjusting for those funds, and I plan on having one more budget adjustment in December for the capital side of the Aquatic and Community Center project. That concludes my report, unless there's any questions.
Does any council member have any questions? Okay, thank you, Mrs. Scully. We will now go to the department heads. If anyone has a report, this is your time to come up forward. Mr. Tooney, thank you.
Good evening. Just my 2-week update on some of the projects going on in the city. The road program is completed. We did have our final walkthrough with the contractor. He is working on the final punch list of items to be completed. Probably it'll go through the end of next week. Just so everybody knows, we will not be planting any more grass this year, and we have not accepted the tree lawn restoration. It was too late in the year. He will have to come back in the spring. He will be grading it out so it's smooth, but as far as planting any more grass is not going to happen this year. If you get any calls, it's just too late. And he will come back. We're holding money back, so it comes back in the spring. The Dominion or Enbridge project out on Mayfield Road, they're going to be done on Wednesday this week, if not tomorrow. All the gas main work is done. Most of the restoration is done. There are a few items that they have to clean up. They were doing a lot of cleanup today. So finally, Mayfield Road will be back to normal. As far as the Marnell project's going, our planned production is ongoing. We still have the flow monitors in there. We'll probably remove them at the end of next week. We have gotten enough data, we believe. And at the end of next week will be 2 months, and we probably won't do another month of flow monitoring. We'll use that data to size the sewers properly as far as the relief sewer that we're going to be doing on Marnell. Well, as far as the dye testing goes, they're done with 51 of the houses. Remember, we had 107 on the list. I think or 103. We had 7 people that opted out, so we're a little more than halfway done with the dye testing, and I have not gotten any results yet. The report will be done at the end of their work. So that's the end of my report, unless there's any questions.
Does any council member have any questions for Mr. Tooney? Okay, thank you. Mrs. Augustine.
Hello. Tonight on the agenda, we have the renewal for the health insurance. And I wanted to go through a little bit of what we've done because we have some new council members. We have a healthcare committee who meets to review programs and initiatives throughout the year, and they review our renewal and recommend to council what we'd like to have. The committee consists of 6 members from each of the collective bargaining unions, 1 member from the non-union employees, and 4 from administration. And like I said, they meet throughout the year to discuss our health insurance, and they are established through our collective bargaining agreements. They're, where am I? They promote smart healthcare consumerism, so teaching employees to avoid the emergency room for non-emergency reasons, teaching them when an appointment is foreseen. If you can get an MRI at a standalone facility, it might be cheaper than going to the hospital. Just things to control our costs here. They have also done some cost savings measures for us throughout the years. They have implemented quantity limits for prescription drugs. They have agreed to step therapy for prescription drugs. These are all cost-saving measures. They have recommended using specific pharmacies. So our employees, when they're on maintenance medications, have a choice of 3 pharmacies. They can't go wherever they want, and this gives us savings. In 2019, or prior to 2019, we had an HSA and an HRA, and employees had their choice of what to have. And for 2019 and beyond, the unions and the non-union members agreed to eliminate the HSA, which was another cost savings for the city, and we have solely an HRA. So the difference between the HSA and the HRA, the HSA is like a personal savings for employees for medical expenses, and whatever they didn't use for the benefit year would carry over into their account, and then it would be replenished again in the following year. And they can use that for whatever medical expense IRS eligible medical expense they wanted for the following years. The HRA, whatever employees don't use, is returned back to the city next year. And in 2023, we had approximately 35% of the funds that were allocated for the HRA funding returned to the city, and we're on pace to have that same amount again. So the committee met and reviewed what the Fidelity Group got us for renewals. We are in with OGBC for Medical Mutual. OGBC is the Ohio Government Benefits Consortium. It consists of 9 member cities, and it gives us purchasing power and some other cost savings being a member of that consortium. So within that consortium, Medical Mutual gave us a renewal of 7.7%. Of the 9 member cities, we were the second lowest. It ranged between 3.4% and 20.6%. And I believe last year we were the lowest. So our group is doing a great job of controlling costs. Our city is consistent, has had offers with decreased renewal rates, but we have found in the past that it looks great, and then in the following years, the spikes come. So they might give us a decrease of 2.8%, and then in about 3 years, it's up to about 18%. So we feel like OGBC has really stabilized our renewals. We do not have a renewal for vision, but it is on the agenda as well, because last year they gave us a 4-year rate guarantee, but the legislation said 2 years. So we're flat with them, we're flat with dental. We did have 2 companies, the Fidelity Group went outside of OGBC to the market to get us some other quotes to see where OGBC compared with our renewals. 2 companies declined to quote because it was non-competitive. Aetna proposed a 6.2% increase, and Anthem offered a decrease of 2.8%. Again, we're leery of those spikes that come in the future. Because we've been stable with OGBC since we went with them in 2019, the committee is recommending renewal with OGBC Medical Mutual. And like I said, the dental and vision are flat, so there's the only reason vision is on is because it said 2 years last year, and really it was a 4-year rate guarantee. And I think that is it. We're asking for your support. I think the healthcare committee does a great job of reducing costs and promoting education and smart healthcare consumerism. And so I appreciate your consideration tonight. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other department head here this evening that would like to be heard? Okay. All right, thank you. Next, we'll move to the reports of committees, commissions, and boards, beginning with the Building Committee. Mr. Medic.
Thank you, Madam President. The Building Committee did not meet, so I have no report.
Thank you. Finance and Audit Committee, Mr. Minor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do not have a report. Just another reminder, as the Director of Finance stated, there will be a Finance Committee meeting this Wednesday at 5:30.
Thank you. Okay, Legislative Committee, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. No report.
Thank you. Public Works and Service, Mr. Balestrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Public Works and Services Committee met on November the 4th to discuss and receive input in a brainstorming session to add pertinent questions and answers to be added to our website relative to flooding issues that have been occurring in the city and to add current infrastructure projects to our website as well and give comprehensive updates. And currently that input is being compiled. So I hope to have a report to council in the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Balestrea. Any questions for Mr. Balestrea? Okay. Recreation and Parks, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Tickets are on sale now for the Evening with Santa dinner on Friday, December the 6th. Tickets are $8 for adults and $10 for children, and will include a picture with Santa, dinner, train ride and Christmas craft, hot chocolate bar, and much more. Save the date for the annual holiday lighting on Sunday, December 1st at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Join us in the Fire Bay as we enjoy the company of our neighbors and enjoy some holiday treats. Children can make a craft compliments of Story Church and get a photo at our wonderful photo booth. The mayor will light up City Hall and be joined by our special guests. New this year, the Recreation Department is hosting a sip and bake on December 12th, where participants will prepare a delicious assortment of holiday cookies, with each participant taking home 6 dozen cookies featuring 6 unique recipes. Space is limited. Register today. As a reminder, we head into resolution season. The 55-plus fitness room is open to Mayfield Heights residents, Silver Sneaker and Renew active members. New hours beginning on November 11th, Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Holiday hours are posted on the website and available at the ACC. We also have Silver Sneaker classes, yoga, pickleball, and more programs. For details on these and the programs listed above, call the Recreation Department at 440-442-2627 or visit the website at www.mayfieldheightsohio.gov. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mano. Are there any questions for Mr. Mano? Okay, good, thanks. Safety and Transportation, Mrs. Talbot.
Oh, committee didn't meet. I have no report. Thank you.
Thank you. Board of Zoning Appeals, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. I have no report.
And Planning Commission, Mr. Balistreo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a report. Planning Commission met also on November the 4th. Council was copied on the minutes. As a result, we have a motion to approve a preliminary and final site plan pending the architect's approval for the landscape plan for Costco. That plan was approved. I think council was copied on that plan as well. So if there's any questions, I'll answer them when we take up the motion.
Thank you. This time, we will proceed to the public portion of the meeting. Pursuant to the city code, each person will be allotted 5 minutes to speak, with a maximum of 30 minutes for the entire public portion. If you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to address council. If you would like to be heard this evening, please fill out a form at the public entrance. And during the public portion, I will call each person wishing to speak to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record and speak clearly into the microphone. It is now 7:20, and I will open up the public portion. I have a form from Mr. Chad Lichten.
What's that say? You read that?
I exist.
Hi, I'm Chad Lichten. I live at 6295 Fairhaven Road. I have a lot to cover today, so I'm just going to speak as fast as I can. I've been here for about 4 years trying to fight this neighbor who has targeted me for being sensitive to light, and I didn't bring the posters up. I'd like to, would you grab them for me? Thank you. Anyway, I do kind of feel like my words mean nothing here because I've said them time and time and time again, and it's as if you go to sleep at night and just don't have to think about the fact that I do exist, and I do exist. I have something to say, and I'm going to keep saying it until I'm heard. Thank you. First off, it is Veterans Day, so you're right. Let's acknowledge everybody who has served and even the fallen, even though it's not Memorial Day. My grandfather served in Okinawa for 38 days. He was in the U.S. Army. He did not get drafted. He joined. And if it weren't for people like him, we wouldn't have the freedoms that we enjoy. And freedom is paramount to everything we are as Americans. So let me read this letter from Anthony Mealy. This was in the packet given to me by Paul Murphy. Mr. Murphy, as previously mentioned, I believe that a light trespass ordinance is unenforceable in the city of Mayfield Heights. If you look at the population densities for all the communities that you mentioned in your research, Mayfield Heights has a much larger population density. As you see below, Mayfield Heights has nearly 2.5 more residents living in the same space as Mentor and nearly 10 times more than Moreland Hills. It goes on to say how many residents per square mile, and Mayfield Heights is a lot more residents per square mile. I just don't see how this is a valid argument, but let's keep going. The homes in Mayfield Heights are far too close to one another to enforce such an ordinance. In your correspondence with the president of Soft Lights, Mr. Baker suggested that because of the vast differences between lighting and how they are measured, we should stay away from any measurement of light and instead rely on description on photos. This would be very subjective and nearly impossible to prove in court. If you add all of the above with the fact that there are only a couple of residents complaining out of the nearly 19,000 people living in our city, this does not appear to be a large-scale issue throughout the city. If this ordinance is, so I want to say something about that. If you think about freedom, the people who are being targeted because they're either sensitive or their neighbor just doesn't like them and they use this technology against them are suffering and do lose their freedom to live well in their own home. So yeah, there's not that many out of this 19,000 population, but the ones that are suffering have restricted freedoms, and you all don't. You all don't have a neighbor who's targeting you the way we do, the way Beverly does. If this ordinance is passed, it may open a door for future complaints based solely on two neighbors that don't get along. Furthermore, the building department employees do not work on evenings, so gathering evidence or infractions would fall on the police department. Our officers are far too busy dealing with serious crimes and crime prevention to be asked to regularly enforce a lighting ordinance. Thank you, Anthony Mealy. Now, this is a meeting, joint legislative and building committees, March 3rd, 2022. I'm not reading the whole thing. I'm just going to go to the lighting part. I don't think I can read it all. How much time do I have?
You have 3 minutes and 35 seconds. Yeah.
Left? I have a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Can I have an extension today?
I can call for the vote.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Monaco asked, what if a sentence was included similar to the commercial ordinance, which we do have a commercial ordinance for commercial buildings. I guess the people who run businesses matter more than the residents because they get the comfort of another business not infringing on their right to have a sign because they have an ordinance that says you can't have any light trespass on a commercial building. But as far as residents, it's a free-for-all, and there's no laws to protect people. Okay. He wanted to know that if it would be enforceable. Mr. V, I'm just going to say V, is the prosecutor who, I must say, I don't ever see him at council meetings. He's just this figure who makes these arbitrary decisions. Reiterated that it would be tricky. The legislation has to be tight in how it is constructed because it will be challenged. However, it is not impossible because there are ordinances out there already. They could take one of them and tweak it to their liking. Mr. DeJohn inquired about enforcing motion sensing lights on residents so it doesn't become a nuisance by being on all night long. Mr. V answered that he is unsure of how it would play out. Again, the legislation would have to have teeth.
Mr. Lichten?
Yes, yes. Too loud?
Hold on 1 second. No.
What?
I just need to call
Oh, yeah,
for
yeah.
an extension. Can I get a motion to extend? Moved by Mr. Balestria and second by Mr. Maddock. Okay, I'm
I
sorry.
highly appreciate that, Matt and Michael. Thank you.
We need a
Oh,
roll
you have
call
to roll
first.
call. Okay.
Roll call.
Yeah.
Mr. Mano. Yes. Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. Medic.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Ms. Tolbin. Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Thank you.
You can continue.
Okay, I'm going to read this fast. Mr. DeJohn inquired, okay. I'm going to skip some of this because it's just like kind of over my head even. Mr. DeJohn stated that he would really like to see legislation created regarding the lighting issue that they could try to enforce. It would show that they are trying to help regarding the resident lighting problem on Parker Drive. Mr. V noted that some of the lighting is consequence of the closeness of the homes. The bulb involved was 750 lumens, the equivalent of 8.5 watts, which is not a heavy-duty spotlight, but a common light bulb. It would be hard to regulate that other than maybe with some shielding and a well-drafted ordinance. He recommended using a local ordinance if council decides to create an ordinance by using an existing one. By the way, if I may turn this on, maybe don't look. This only runs, I don't know the wattage, but it's only 6 AA batteries. But as you can tell, no one wants to look at a light like this. This hurts. This is annoying as heck, and no one would want to stare at this all night long in the darkness. And this is nothing compared to what we have to look at all night long. And I see nobody's looking. Nobody's looking. Okay. Mr. Murphy shared that the only local communities that have a residential light ordinance are Moreland Hills, Chagrin Falls, Richmond Heights, and Willoughby Hills. He also had samples of legislation found from another 10 or 12 areas in Ohio. However, some of the areas like Moreland Hills have large areas in between houses, so their situation is not really comparable. Also, some of the other areas in Ohio, he's unsure what their makeup is, so it's maybe something that they should consider. Mr. Monaco shared that the lighting restriction for Mentor, the section stating that, quote, all exterior lighting shall be designed and installed to avoid glaring and light trespass, which, that's light trespass. This is what light trespass looks like when you don't want it in your home, but it's getting in your home. This is glare when your camera sensor is so overloaded by how bright the thing is that it swooshes it beyond the plane of even like the outside. That's glaring light if I've ever seen one. So there's really no confusion here. Anyway, obviously these things can be measured. That all exterior lighting should, to avoid glaring and light trespass on adjoining properties and public right-of-way. Mr. Murphy answered, what is glare and light trespass? I just showed you. They are subjective terms making them unenforceable. Mr. Mano expressed that he liked the ordinance for Mentor, which I haven't yet read this, but thank you, Mr. Mano, for at least at the time being on board with this. And thank you, Mrs. Sabetta stated that she can see the need for light legislation and thinks that there should be something. Mr. DeJohn agreed and stated that he would like to see Mr. V and Mr. Murphy draft some form of legislation. Mrs. Teresi stated that no matter what the ordinance they create or duplicate, the administration has to put it on their website, the community page, social media, etc., so that all the residents are aware of the new ordinance with the new rules. This will prevent a whole other issue of residents being unaware. Okay, I'll just end it by saying this letter that talks about square footage of residents per square mile. As you can see, obviously light actually hurts you more the closer you are. The fact that Mayfield houses are in closer vicinity and there's more residents per acre than any other community that does care about the well-being of the residents should have no matter. I don't see how that even connects. Yes, it might be difficult to enforce, well, not even difficult, but somewhat tedious maybe. It's not difficult to enforce. It's just a new ordinance. And it would protect people who are really suffering from the lack of help that they're not receiving. And so if you think about this argument about the square footage and the amount of residents that live there, it doesn't add up. Not to me, it doesn't, because it just doesn't make sense. If Moreland Hills, yes, they have less residents per square mile, but they have a very extensive lighting ordinance, and I don't think it's for beautification. I think it's for the well-being of the residents. You know, I don't see how you could even talk about beautification until you make sure that everybody has a nice view out of their window and doesn't have to be blinded at night, all night, because they have a nasty neighbor who chooses to shine tons of light at them, who doesn't even live in Mayfield Heights. And I just hope you hear me more. And one last thing I will say is it would really just be nice if someone on the board contacted me randomly and said, Chad, I want to learn more. You know, no one has really contacted me except in response to me and just said, Chad, what is going on with this? Why does this hurt you? What is it really like living with that? And, you know, no one seemed to want to educate themselves from the source about it. So I get these 5 minutes here, and it's not really enough time to really discuss why it matters, and it doesn't just matter to me. It matters in general. It's a new technology that is easy to hurt people with, and it should be managed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lichten. Is there anyone else this evening that would like to be heard? Okay. We will now close the public portion. It is 7:30. I will now turn over the meeting to Council President Pro Tem, Mr. Mano, for the next two resolutions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution number 2024-60, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mano. Resolution number 2024-60, a resolution accepting a quotation for medical and prescription group health insurance from Medical Mutual of Ohio through the Ohio Government Benefit Cooperative and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Balistrea, second.
Second?
Second by Mr. Minor. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Medic,
Yes.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Ms. Tobin,
Yes.
Mr. Balestria,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Abstain?
The motion has carried.
Or a motion to approve?
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved?
Second.
Sullivan and
Oh, Matt.
seconded?
Medic.
Matt.
Mr. Medic?
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, can I have a roll call on the approval?
Ms. Tobin,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder,
Abstain, sorry. This is
Mr.
the mayor.
Medic,
Yes.
Mr. Balestria,
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes. That motion is passed. Ordinance number 2024-25, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mano. Resolution number 2024-61. Wrong one.
Nope.
All right.
25.
55.
24.
2024-61.
Yeah.
A resolution accepting a quotation for vision insurance from iMed Vision Insurance and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Do I have a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
No.
Ms. Talbin,
Second.
second, Mr. Minor. Roll call?
Mr. Balestria,
Yes.
Ms. Tobin,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. Medic,
Yes.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder,
Abstain?
Mr. Mano.
Yes. Okay. Do we have any discussion on this? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved?
Mrs.
Better.
Spetta, Mr. Minor. Roll call?
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mr. Medic,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder,
Abstain?
Mr. Balestria,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Ms. Tobin,
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes. That's passed.
Okay, I'll take it back. All right.
Snyder, take it away.
All right. We will now move to ordinances, beginning with ordinance number 2024-24. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2024-24, an ordinance enacting section 763.05 of the codified ordinances of the city titled Do Not Knock Registry. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved?
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Balestria?
Yes.
Ms. Tolbin?
Yes.
Mr. Minor?
Yes.
Mr. Medic?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by
Second.
Mr. Mano and second by Mr. Balestrea. Section 763.05 of the codifies will state any solicitor or peddler that enters any premise to knock or ring the doorbell of any resident, house or apartment, or other dwelling in the city that has the do not knock sticker is forbidden. NOPEC will establish and maintain a registry for the city. They will distribute the do not knock stickers to the residents at no cost to the city. The list will be updated every year. Mayor, is there anything else you would like to add to that? Mrs. Sabetta?
One question. So does this include religious? Are they allowed to knock? An election, are they allowed to knock?
I don't know that question. Mr. Murphy?
It includes anybody who arrives at the home unsolicited, whether they're peddlers, solicitors, or trying to spread religion.
Okay,
Includes everybody.
okay. Thank you.
Ms. Talbin?
Could you clarify, does that also include people going for signatures if they're going to run for council or anything? I didn't think do not knock had to do with those sorts of things. It's usually solicitation to sell.
As far as I can understand, that includes everybody, including if you're potential political candidates soliciting signatures.
Okay, I thought that was not true, but I wanted to understand that. I have a couple other questions. Does this, since NOPEG is going, they're going to organize this, they're going to maintain the list. Does the city get the list also? It does, okay.
Yes.
And the other thing I wanted to know is if somebody violates, who does the resident call? Do they call the city then? They're not going to call NOPEC, right?
I would think they would call the city.
They would call the city? Is there anybody specifically in the city they would call?
They could either call my office or the police department.
Okay, okay. And then finally, there's a form. So are we putting the form on the website?
We definitely can. That would be
I think
one
we
way,
should-
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Lloyd, I have a question for you, real quick. Were you able to find the information with regard to this?
No, I didn't get a chance to find anything around the time period that we discussed.
Okay. Because years ago, we had something similar, and do you remember that, Mrs. Sabetta? And then it was looked into by our law director at that time, and they said that they could not enact this type of a, do you remember that, Mr. Mano?
I do. At the time, the proposal was abstaining for political people. If you're out canvassing, knocking on doors to introduce yourself to the residents and so on and so forth, and to get a petition signed, this ordinance could not stop you from doing that. And that had been pointed out. And the other thing was religious organizations that canvass areas. That couldn't be stopped. There was a whole lot of things about that. But
The time change.
Time
the
changes.
time you can go to someone's
Right,
house.
Right.
But do you remember, it was like a whole big thing, and Mr. Carr had looked into it. So
Right.
we did pass it.
He said it
Right,
was
but
not
then they had to,
enforceable.
it was not enforceable. So we had to stop the program.
So if residents want to sign up for a do not knock registry, they can. And that will stop all the solicitors, except the two that you now just told everybody that they could go to their house for. But if they still want to take advantage of registering for it and have signs on their houses that'll keep everybody else away, they can do that.
Yeah. What? He's looking at me like he has something to say. Do you have something to say? Mr. Mano?
I don't know. I don't see how you can enforce it. I just don't. I mean, a lot of people have little signs, no soliciting. That was, the city produced those, and we passed those out, and a lot of people took them. But it exempted political and religious groups.
I
The
still
thing
walk
got
away.
fired up because they extended the amount of time that solicitors could go door to door till 9 PM. And it also, at one point, we had exempted Sundays from solicitation. And that ordinance at that time put that aside. They could come anytime, but they were supposed to be registered with the city. They were supposed to have a badge or a sign saying who they were and so on. And as far as I know, that was done, and it wasn't a problem. Now, why all of a sudden are we?
Madam President, if I could. Well, because our agreement with NOPEC ran out. But they have to come to the city, any solicitors. They get the list of do not knock. They're not supposed to go to those houses. That is what the list is for. So at least, there is something there telling the solicitors, don't go to these houses. Now, like I said, if if you're going door to door as a council person or somebody running for mayor, yeah, I mean, that's a different circumstance. But this ordinance is taken from NOPEC's suggested language, and it's been upheld wherever NOPEC has had this registry with its communities that it has agreements with. So I think that this ordinance will do its job to a great extent. Is it bulletproof? No. But you'll still get some people knocking who are exempted, yes. But at least the average solicitor will not be able to knock on those homes.
Oh, Mr. Murphy.
If I could jump in here. The city already has an ordinance prohibiting peddlers and solicitors from approaching houses where they have indicated that they do not want them there, and the city does have stickers. What this ordinance does is only establish the, excuse me, NOPEC Do Not Knock registry, which is a registry which is kept by NOPEC, which the city can access or any of the potential peddlers or solicitors can access. So you can have a NOPEC sticker or a City of Mayfield Heights sticker or both stickers, and it is enforceable.
Okay,
That
perfect.
double.
Thank you. Any further questions? All right, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. Medic.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Ms. Tolbin.
Yes.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this ordinance has been approved. We will now move to ordinance number 2024-25. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance 2024-25, an ordinance making appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Mayfield Heights, State of Ohio, during the fiscal year ending December 31, 2025, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
We're going to place this on first reading and send this to the Finance Committee. Ordinance number 2024-26, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance 2024-26, an ordinance amending the original appropriations ordinance 2023-30 for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Mayfield Heights, State of Ohio, for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2024, as previously amended by ordinances 2024-09 and 2024-14, specifically, especially the transfer and supplemental appropriations of funds in various accounts and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta and second by Mr. Bellistrea. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Ms. Tolbin, Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Medic,
Yes.
Mr. Balestria,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea and second by Mr. Minor. This ordinance amends the appropriations of funds in the various accounts during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024. We heard from Mrs. Scully this evening. Are there any further questions or comments from council? Okay, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Ms. Tolbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. Medic,
Yes.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, ordinance number 2024-26 has been approved. We will now move to motions, beginning with motion A. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A motion to approve the final site plan contingent upon the landscape architect's approval for an addition to the fuel station for Costco located at 1409 Golden Gate Boulevard.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea and second by Mr. Mano. You heard from Mr. Balestrea's, the Planning Commission report. All members of council should receive the Planning Commission minutes. This would be in addition to Costco's fuel station. The motion was granted with a 4-0 vote in favor for the addition. And the building director had commented and said that it was a straightforward report, and it was going to be contingent upon the landscape of the architectural's approval, but that was approved. And Mr. Balestier, Mayor, do you have anything further?
Just so council knows what is happening, Costco has come to the Planning Commission to add an extra pump on each of their islands and then add an additional whole row of pumps to cut down on the traffic congestion. And so that was well welcomed, I think, in the city, and especially in the Planning Commission. So it met with a overwhelming approval, should I say.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Minor,
Mrs. Sabetta, did you
I
have a
have
question?
some questions. Okay, so can I ask how long these fuel stations are open? What's the time?
We asked that question on at the Planning Commission, how long they're going to be open. There's going to be some closure for a while because they're going to have to extend the canopy.
You mean
I
the time, the
timing
hours?
Yeah, the
Oh, operating hours?
Yeah, I mean, how
I'm
late
not
at
sure what the
night?
operating hours are going to be.
I think they're,
Yeah,
It's like 7:30 to,
I think they're only open an hour after they're closed.
Hi, I'm Kayleen Burnett with Costco Wholesale. 730 Lake Drive, Issaquah, Washington, 98027. Our operating hours typically vary from location to location, but most of our stations open at 7 and close around 9 p.m. when the warehouse closes.
okay. And my other question would be, they spoke about the gate. There was a record about the gate being closed between 9:30 and 8:30, and I think this has not been amended. It says, this is from the building department.
I can answer that.
Wondering-
That was when Costco was being developed way back when, and the council at the time wanted to put a gate across Maplewood during the evening hours to restrict traffic. And that was never done. It was challenged, and I think it was even challenged as a court issue. So I think that was just a question for clarification, but that's not even an item to consider.
Okay, because it's written by the building department, so I wanted to know if, that's going to be taken off the table.
Never happened.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from council? Okay, thank you. Roll call the motion to approve.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mr. Medic,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes?
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Ms. Tolbin,
yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This motion has now been approved. Is there any new business or questions from council? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Minor, second by Mrs. Sabetta. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. We are now adjourned.